Imagine finding a 1964 D Lincoln penny and realizing that the tiniest details could separate an ordinary 1-cent coin from a collectible worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But before you throw that penny into a jar, there's something you absolutely need to check. The 1964 D Lincoln cent is one of those coins that looks incredibly ordinary at first glance. It has Lincoln on the front, the memorial on the back, and a tiny D mint mark beneath the date. Millions were made, so most examples are not rare. But here's where the story gets interesting. The value of a 1964 D penny can change dramatically depending on its condition, color, strike quality, and whether it has an unusual minting error. And one of the biggest mistakes collectors make is assuming that because a coin is common, every example must be worthless. So if you have a 1964 D penny sitting in an old collection, coin jar, drawer, or box of change, stay with me, because we're going to examine exactly what makes this coin interesting, what mistakes to avoid, and how much a truly exceptional example can bring. Let's start with the basics. The 1964 D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by that small D underneath the year on the front of the coin. It belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent era, which began in 1959. And there's an important detail here. The coin was made from a bronze composition rather than the copper-plated zinc used for many later Lincoln cents. A normal 1964 D cent weighs about 3.11 grams, and its original copper color can be one of the first things collectors examine. Now look at your coin. Is it dark brown? Is it reddish brown? Or does it still have that bright original red appearance? That color can matter. Professional graders commonly distinguish between brown, red-brown, and red examples. A coin that has maintained its original red color and brilliant mint luster can be much more desirable than a heavily circulated brown example. And that brings us to the first big trap. You might find a website claiming that a 1964 D penny is worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Then you look at your own coin and think, I found one. Not so fast. The date alone does not make this coin rare. The D mint mark alone does not make it rare. And simply having a shiny-looking penny does not automatically make it valuable. The real game is condition. Think about it this way. Imagine two 1964 D pennies made at the same mint in the same year. One spent decades circulating through stores, pockets, vending machines, and cash registers. It has scratches, marks, worn details, and discoloration. The other somehow escaped circulation and remained almost exactly as it left the mint. Same date, same mint, same basic coin, but collectors can value them very differently. That is why high-grade examples are where things get exciting. According to PCGS auction records, a 1964 D Lincoln cent graded MS-67 red sold for $4,025 in a Stax Bowers auction in March 2012. PCGS also lists the coin's auction record at $4,025 for that grade. Now stop for a second. $4,025 for one Lincoln penny. That doesn't mean your 1964 D penny is automatically worth $4,025. In fact, most definitely are not. That enormous difference comes down to quality. A normal circulated 1964 D cent can be worth very little beyond its face value, while exceptional certified examples can command dramatically higher prices. And this is exactly why you should never judge an old coin by its age alone. Here's another surprise. PCGS records show a 1964 D Lincoln cent graded MS-64 red selling for just $10 in a Great Collections auction. Another MS-66 example sold for $26 in 2014, while a different MS-66 red example sold for $30 in an eBay transaction in 2021. Notice what happened. MS-64. Around $10 in that recorded sale. MS-66, tens of dollars. MS-67, thousands. That is the power of condition. One grade can make an enormous difference when you reach the very top of the population. And there's another detail that makes this fascinating. PCGS lists a population of 26 for the MS-67 example, with 9 examples graded higher in its reported population data. So when collectors compete for the finest coins, they aren't simply buying a penny. They're competing for condition rarity. And that's something you can actually look for at home. Take your 1964 D penny and hold it under a bright light. But don't clean it. This is extremely important. One of the worst things you can do to an old collectible coin is aggressively polish or clean it because you want it to look shiny. A cleaned coin may look brighter to your eyes, but collectors can often recognize unnatural surfaces, scratches, or altered luster. Original surfaces are valuable. Artificial shine is not the same thing. Instead, inspect the coin carefully. Start with Lincoln's cheek. Look for tiny contact marks. Then examine the fields around Lincoln. These open areas are important because scratches and dents can stand out easily. Next, look at the date. Make sure the digits are sharp and undamaged. Then check directly underneath the date for that tiny D. After that, flip the coin over. Look at the Lincoln Memorial. Check the columns, lettering, and open fields for signs of wear, scratches, discoloration, or unusual doubling. And now comes the part many beginners get wrong. Not every unusual-looking mark is an error. Sometimes a scratch happens after the coin leaves the mint. Sometimes dirt gets trapped on the surface. Sometimes lighting creates an illusion. And sometimes damage can make letters or numbers appear doubled. A genuine mint error is something completely different. So if you think your 1964 D penny has doubling, an unusual strike, a strange shape, or another major minting anomaly, don't immediately assume you have a fortune. Compare it carefully with known examples and consider professional authentication before spending serious money based on a photograph or internet claim. There is another reason this particular date can fool people. The 1964 D cent was produced in enormous numbers. That means the year itself is not rare. The value comes from the exceptional examples. And that distinction is critical. Collectors aren't usually searching for any 1964 D penny. They're searching for the 1964 D penny that stands out from the millions. It's like baseball cards. A player may have millions of cards printed, but a pristine example with exceptional condition can still become highly desirable. Coins work in a similar way, and this is where the red designation becomes especially interesting. A red Lincoln cent has retained much of its original red coloration. Copper naturally changes color over time when exposed to air and the environment. So finding an older cent with strong original red surfaces can be much more challenging than finding a worn brown example. But don't let the word red fool you. A coin being red does not automatically make it valuable. The grade still matters. Surface preservation still matters. Strike quality still matters. And eye appeal matters. You can have a red coin with distracting marks, and another red coin with incredible surfaces. Collectors will notice the difference. So what should you do if you find a beautiful 1964 D penny? First, don't clean it. Second, don't scratch it or rub it with a cloth. Third, don't put it in a pocket with other coins where they can bang against each other. Place it somewhere safe, ideally in an appropriate coin holder. Then inspect it with magnification. If it appears exceptionally well preserved, especially if it has strong original red color and very few marks, that's when you may want to investigate professional grading. But remember something important. Grading costs money. You shouldn't automatically send every old penny to a grading company. If your coin is heavily worn, scratched, stained, or damaged, the grading cost may not make economic sense. The real opportunity is identifying the exceptional coin before spending money on certification. And now we come to the question everyone is waiting for. How much is a 1964 D Lincoln penny actually worth? For most circulated examples, don't expect a life-changing amount. These coins are common. But if you have a high-grade, original example, the numbers can change dramatically. PCGS records an MS-64 sale at $10, an MS-66 sale at $26, and an MS-66 red sale at $30 in recorded transactions. But the biggest jump comes at the very top. An MS-67 red example sold for $4,025. And that is the real lesson. The $4,025 figure isn't the value of every 1964 D penny. It's the value of an exceptional certified example in a very high grade. So if you have one, don't look at the date and immediately celebrate. Look at the condition. Look at the color. Look at the surfaces. Look at the strike. Look for anything unusual. Because the difference between an ordinary penny and a highly collectible penny can sometimes be hiding in details so small that you need magnification to see them. And here's my challenge for you. Go find your 1964 D Lincoln penny. Turn it over. Look at Lincoln's cheek. Check the fields. Inspect the memorial. Look carefully at the date and mint mark. Then ask yourself one simple question. Does this coin look like it spent 60 years circulating? Or does it look like it somehow escaped time? If yours has strong original red color, brilliant luster, and remarkably clean surfaces, don't dismiss it just because 1964 D cents are common. That could be the moment when an ordinary-looking penny becomes a serious collector piece. And if you found a 1964 D penny with an unusual error or a condition that looks almost perfect, tell me what you see in the comments. You might be surprised how many other collectors are looking for the same thing. Remember, the goal isn't to believe every million-dollar penny story you see online. The goal is to know what you're looking at, because sometimes the most interesting coins aren't the ones that scream for attention. They're the ones sitting quietly in an old jar, waiting for someone to notice one tiny detail. So before you spend that old penny, check it. Before you clean it, stop. And before you decide it's worthless, take a closer look. You might not have a $4,025 coin, but if you have an unusually high-grade 1964 D Lincoln cent, you may have something far more interesting than 1 cent. And that's exactly why coin hunting is so addictive. One small coin, one tiny mint mark, one overlooked detail, and sometimes one very surprising discovery. If you enjoy uncovering hidden value in old American coins, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, because the next ordinary-looking penny in your collection could be the one you never expected. Stop before you spend that 1979 D Lincoln penny. One tiny detail could separate an ordinary 1-cent coin from a coin that has brought thousands of dollars at auction. At first glance, the 1979 D Lincoln cent looks like just another old penny. It has Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, and that small D mint mark tells you it was made at the Denver Mint. But there is a reason collectors pay close attention to the very best examples of this coin. And the biggest clue is not necessarily an obvious error. It is condition. The 1979 D Lincoln cent was produced in enormous numbers. According to PCGS, the Denver Mint struck more than 4.1 billion of them. That means the date itself is not rare. In fact, most 1979 D pennies you find are worth very little beyond their face value. So why are some examples worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? That is where this gets interesting. Imagine reaching into a jar of old change and pulling out a 1979 D penny. It looks bright. The lettering is sharp. Lincoln's hair has plenty of detail. The surfaces look almost untouched. You might think, it's just a penny. But a serious collector might see something completely different. They might see a coin with the potential to receive an extremely high mint state grade. And with modern Lincoln cents, that grade can make a dramatic difference. First, look at the date. You want to see 1979. Then look directly below the date, near the front of the coin. If you see a small D, you have a Denver minted example. Now here is the first mistake people make. They find a 1979 D penny, see that it is old, and automatically assume it must be rare. It isn't. The massive mintage means ordinary circulated examples are common. Scratches, dirt, discoloration, dents, worn details, and heavy contact marks can keep a coin firmly in the ordinary category. But what if your coin looks almost untouched? That's when you slow down. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. And definitely don't rub the surface with a cloth. Cleaning a potentially valuable coin can destroy the original surface and seriously hurt its collector appeal. Instead, hold it by the edges and examine it under good lighting. Now look at Lincoln's cheek. This is one of the first places where contact marks can become obvious. On a high-grade coin, collectors want smooth, attractive surfaces with as few distracting marks as possible. Next, inspect Lincoln's jaw, hair, forehead, and the open fields around his portrait. A coin can look amazing from across the room and completely different under magnification. Here's another important clue. Look at the color. PCGS uses the designation RD for red on eligible copper coins. A red example generally retains a large amount of its original reddish copper color rather than turning brown from age and environmental exposure. That doesn't mean every shiny red penny is valuable. In fact, that's another trap. A coin can be bright because someone cleaned or altered it. Natural original color is what collectors care about. So if your 1979 D penny has an attractive original red appearance, strong luster, and very clean surfaces, you may have something worth examining much more carefully. But we're still not done. Because the real question is, how high can the grade go? PCGS records show that the 1979 D Lincoln cent becomes scarce in the highest grades. Examples up to MS-66 can be found, while MS-67 examples are considerably more difficult. Coins grading even higher become very scarce. And that is where the story changes. Think about what an MS grade means. A coin doesn't need to be old to receive a high mint state grade. Instead, the grade is based heavily on its condition and preservation. That is why a 1979 D penny that spent decades protected from circulation can become much more interesting than a worn coin from a century earlier. Now take a close look at the reverse. You should see the Lincoln Memorial with strong details and clean lettering. Pay attention to the columns, the steps, and the open areas around the design. Any major scratches, hits, stains, or unusual damage can matter. And don't forget the tiny details. Look at the lettering. Look around the rim. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Then compare the coin from different angles under light. Sometimes the difference between an ordinary coin and a premium example isn't something dramatic. It can simply be the overall quality of preservation. But there is another reason you should keep looking. Mint errors and unusual varieties can sometimes create additional collector interest. However, don't fall into the internet trap of assuming every strange-looking mark is a valuable error. Machine doubling, die deterioration, scratches, environmental damage, and ordinary wear can create features that look exciting under a phone camera. A genuine mint error needs to be identified correctly. So if you think you found something unusual, don't immediately believe a headline claiming your penny is worth $10,000, $50,000, or even $1 million. Compare it with authenticated examples. And if the coin really appears exceptional, consider professional authentication and grading. Now let's get to the part you've been waiting for. What is a 1979 D Lincoln cent actually worth? For the average circulated coin, we're talking about a very ordinary piece of pocket change. But the value can climb sharply when condition becomes exceptional. PCGS lists an auction record of $3,995 for a 1979 D Lincoln cent graded MS-67 plus red. That coin sold through Heritage Auctions on February 4, 2016. Read that again. A penny with a face value of 1 cent reached nearly $4,000. And that is exactly why condition matters so much. Another PCGS recorded 1979 D MS-67 red example sold for $775. While another MS-67 red example sold for $210 in 2023. Notice something important here. These aren't all the same price. That is because coin value depends on factors including grade, color designation, IAPL certification, market demand, and the exact coin being sold. So don't assume that finding any 1979 D penny means you found a $3,995 coin. You haven't. The auction record belongs to an exceptionally high-grade certified example. That distinction is extremely important. But now imagine you find one that looks unusually clean. You turn it over. The color is still bright. The surfaces are smooth. The details are sharp. There are very few marks. And the coin has clearly spent most of its life protected from circulation. Would you spend it? That's the decision you need to make. Because once you understand what collectors are searching for, you start looking at everyday pennies differently. The next time someone hands you a handful of change, don't just look at the dates. Look at the condition. A common coin in exceptional condition can sometimes be far more interesting than a common coin that has been heavily circulated. And here's a simple test you can do at home. Take your 1979 D penny and place it next to several other pennies from around the same period. Compare the color. Compare the shine. Compare Lincoln's cheek. Compare the fields. Compare the lettering. Look for contact marks. Then examine the reverse. Does the coin look unusually fresh compared with the others? Does it have strong original-looking red color? Does it appear nearly untouched? If the answer is yes, don't rush to sell it. And don't clean it. Put it somewhere safe and learn exactly what you have first. Because there is one more thing beginners often overlook. The condition of the coin when it leaves the mint is only part of the story. What happened afterward matters enormously. A coin could have been struck beautifully and then thrown into a bag with thousands of other coins. During transportation and storage, coins collide with one another. Those tiny impacts can leave marks that become important when the coin is being judged at the highest grades. That's why finding an extremely clean 1979D can be difficult even though billions were produced. There may be millions of surviving examples, but the number of coins preserved well enough to compete at the highest grades is dramatically smaller. And that is the hidden lesson behind this penny. Rarity isn't always about how few coins were made. Sometimes it's about how few coins survived in exceptional condition. So check your change. Check your old coin jars. Check the pennies sitting in drawers. Check collections that have been untouched for decades. And if you find a 1979D Lincoln cent that looks unusually beautiful, don't assume it's worthless just because billions were minted. At the same time, don't assume it's a fortune just because it's shiny. Look for the details. Look for the original red color. Look for exceptional preservation. Look for legitimate mint errors or varieties. And most importantly, compare your coin with certified examples before making a decision. Because the difference between one ordinary penny and one exceptional penny can be hiding in details most people never notice. So, do you have a 1979D Lincoln penny? Take it out and look at it right now. Check the D. Check the color. Check Lincoln's cheek. Check the reverse. Look for marks, damage, and unusual features. And if your coin looks remarkably clean, hold on to it. You might not be holding a $4,000 penny, but you could be holding a coin worth considerably more than 1 cent. And that's the fun of coin collecting. Sometimes the treasure isn't hiding in a mysterious ancient coin. Sometimes it's sitting right in your pocket. If you enjoy discovering the hidden value behind ordinary American coins, subscribe and keep checking your change. Because the next penny you almost spend could be the one you wish you had looked at twice. Stop before you spend that 1987 Lincoln penny. That little 1-cent coin could be worth far more than its face value, especially if it has the right condition, color, or an unusual minting characteristic. And the most important clue may be hiding in plain sight. If you have a 1987 Lincoln cent sitting in a jar, drawer, old collection, or even loose change, take a closer look. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what makes a 1987 penny interesting, what the missing mint mark actually means, which details collectors care about, and how a seemingly ordinary penny reached a 4-figure auction price. Here's where things get interesting. The 1987 Lincoln cent is not a rare coin simply because it is from 1987. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint produced more than 4.68 billion examples that year. That means the ordinary 1987 penny is extremely common. But common does not always mean worthless. And this is where many people make their first mistake. They find a 1987 penny with no mint mark and assume something unusual happened. But for this particular coin, no mint mark is exactly what you should expect. The coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and Philadelphia cents from this era normally carried no mint mark. So if your 1987 penny has no letter underneath the date, don't automatically think you've discovered an error. Instead, start looking at something much more important. Condition. The 1987 Lincoln cent is part of the modern Lincoln cent series, designed by Victor David Brenner and later modified by Frank Gasparo. By 1987, the cent was made from copper-plated zinc, weighed about 2.50 grams, and measured 19 millimeters across. That sounds like a normal penny, and most of them are. But imagine opening an old jar and finding one that somehow avoided decades of scratches, dirt, fingerprints, pocket wear, and damage. Now you're looking at a completely different coin. Collectors call the bright, original red appearance RD, meaning red. And on modern Lincoln cents, that original red color can become especially important when the coin is also in a very high mint state grade. Think about it this way. A worn 1987 penny might barely attract attention. A nice, uncirculated example might attract a collector. But a nearly flawless, bright red example at the very top of the grading scale can become something entirely different. And that is where the mystery of the 1987 penny really begins. Because when you're searching through your coins, you aren't necessarily looking for an old penny. You're looking for an exceptional penny. There's a huge difference. Take your 1987 cent and turn it under a strong light. Don't just look at the date. Look at Lincoln's cheek, jaw, hair, and coat. These areas can reveal tiny marks that aren't obvious at first glance. Now flip the coin over. Look around the Lincoln Memorial, the columns, the steps, the lettering, and the open fields. Why? Because contact marks matter. When freshly struck coins move through production, transportation, storage, and handling, they can hit other coins and develop small marks. Later, those tiny imperfections can make the difference between a very high grade and an elite grade. And here's a trick many beginners miss. Don't clean the coin. If your 1987 penny looks dirty, scratched, dark, or dull, you might be tempted to polish it until it shines. That can actually make things worse. Cleaning can leave hairlines, unnatural surfaces, and other signs that experienced collectors recognize immediately. A coin with original surfaces is generally much more desirable than one that has been aggressively polished. So if you think you've found a special 1987 cent, leave it alone. No polishing. No chemicals. No scratching. Just examine it carefully. Now let's talk about the detail that causes the most confusion. The missing mint mark. On a 1987 Philadelphia cent, there is normally no mint mark. That's not a mistake. It doesn't automatically make the coin rare. In other words, a 1987 penny without a mint mark isn't valuable simply because the mint mark is missing. But that doesn't mean you should throw it back into your change. The real question is, how good is the coin? This is where grading becomes extremely important. Professional grading companies use a numerical scale to describe a coin's condition. Coins at the lower end show heavy circulation and wear. Coins in mint state have not been circulated in the traditional sense, and as the grade gets higher, the standards become much tougher. At the extreme top end, tiny imperfections can matter. One small mark, one distracting spot, one weakness in the strike, one surface issue. Any of these can keep a coin from reaching the highest grades. And that's why an ordinary-looking 1987 cent can become a serious collector piece when it survives in extraordinary condition. Now here's the number you've been waiting for. According to PCGS CoinFacts, the auction record listed for the 1987 1C red regular strike Lincoln cent is $1,920. That coin was graded MS69RD and sold through Heritage Auctions on April 6, 2025. Read that again in your head. $1,920. For a 1987 Lincoln cent. Not a 19th century coin. Not a rare silver coin. Not a famous gold piece. A modern Lincoln cent. And that's exactly why condition is so fascinating in coin collecting. But don't make the mistake of thinking every 1987 penny is worth anywhere near $1,920. It isn't. The record belongs to an exceptional, professionally graded example at an extremely high grade. Most 1987 cents are still worth around face value when circulated. That's the part that makes this hunt exciting. You're not searching for a guaranteed fortune. You're searching for the tiny percentage of coins that escaped the damage and where that happened to millions of others. And there's another reason you should slow down before deciding your coin is valuable. Color matters. You may see terms such as brown, and red when researching Lincoln cents. A bright, original red surface can be especially desirable on a high-grade modern cent. But don't confuse shiny with original. A coin can be shiny because somebody cleaned it. Can also be bright because of lighting. So don't judge color from one quick glance. Move the coin under different angles of light. Look at the surfaces. Look for original mint luster. Look for spots. Look for scratches. And most importantly, compare it with professionally graded examples. Here's another pattern interrupt. Grab 3 1987 pennies if you have them. Put them side by side. Which one looks the cleanest? Which one has the strongest original shine? Which one has the fewest marks? Which one has the sharpest details? That simple comparison can teach you more than staring at one coin by itself. Now look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Check the high points first. Then inspect the fields around the portrait. Next, flip the coin and examine the memorial. You're looking for anything unusual, but don't mistake normal die characteristics, machine doubling, scratches, or damage for a major mint error. That's another huge mistake beginners make. They see a strange line or doubled-looking letter and immediately think they've discovered a rare error worth thousands. Sometimes it's an error. Sometimes it's damage. Sometimes it's mechanical doubling. And sometimes it's simply the way the coin was struck. That is why serious collectors verify unusual discoveries before putting a huge value on them. If your coin has an unusual feature, take clear photographs and compare it with reliable references. If it appears genuinely significant, professional attribution or grading may be worth considering. But don't spend hundreds of dollars getting every ordinary penny graded. The numbers have to make sense. Remember, more than 4.68 billion 1987 Philadelphia cents were struck. So rarity doesn't come from the year alone. It comes from the combination of date, mint, variety, error status, preservation, and grade. And that brings us to the biggest lesson from this coin. A coin doesn't have to be ancient to become collectible. Sometimes the real challenge is finding a modern coin that survived in exceptional condition. Think about how many 1987 pennies were handled. They went into cash registers. They moved through banks. They sat in pockets. They bounced around purses. They were dropped on sidewalks. They were thrown into jars. They were spent, saved, counted, and handled millions of times. After nearly 4 decades, most examples have picked up some kind of damage. That's why an almost perfect example stands out. And that's also why you should never judge a coin only by its age. Now imagine finding one in an old family collection. You pull it out. The date says 1987. There's no mint mark. At first, you almost put it back. Then you notice the brilliant red color. You rotate it under the light. The surfaces look unusually clean. The lettering is sharp. The memorial is crisp. Suddenly, you aren't looking at just another penny. You're looking at a coin that deserves a much closer examination. Could it be the next record-setting example? Probably not. But that's not the point. The point is that you won't know until you look. And remember the difference between an asking price and an actual auction result. Someone can list a penny online for thousands of dollars, but a real sale is much stronger evidence of what buyers were actually willing to pay. For this 1987 Philadelphia cent, the documented PCGS Coinfax auction record is $1,920 for an MS69RD example. That is the number worth remembering. Not because every 1987 penny is a $1,920 coin, but because it proves how dramatically condition can change the story. So tonight, check your coin jar. Check those old rolls. Check the pennies you've been ignoring for years. And if you find a 1987 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, don't assume the missing letter is the treasure. Look at the surfaces. Look at the color. Look at the condition. Look for genuine abnormalities. And most importantly, don't clean it. You might be holding something ordinary, or you might have found an unusually preserved piece of American coinage hiding in plain sight. Now I want to know what you found. Do you have a 1987 Lincoln penny? Is it bright red, worn brown, or somewhere in between? Does yours have any unusual doubling, marks, or other strange features? Take a close look before you spend it. Because sometimes the coin everyone else ignores is the coin worth investigating. And the next time someone tells you that a penny is only worth 1 cent, remember this story. The face value might be 1 cent. The right coin in the right condition can tell a very different story. If you enjoy hunting for hidden value in ordinary American coins, subscribe and stay tuned for more rare Lincoln pennies, unusual errors, and overlooked coins that collectors are watching. Because your next valuable find may already be sitting in your pocket. That little 1991 Lincoln penny sitting in your change jar could be worth more than 1 cent, but only if you know exactly what to look for. And there's one detail on this coin that most people completely overlook. Before you spend another 1991 penny, take a close look at the date, the mint mark area, the color, and especially the condition. Because while most 1991 Lincoln cents are common, the right example can become surprisingly valuable. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1991 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, the Philadelphia issue, and we're going to uncover what makes an ordinary-looking penny interesting to collectors, what mistakes people make when checking one, and how much the best examples have actually brought. And stay with me because near the end, We'll get to the number that separates an ordinary 1991 penny from an exceptional one. First, let's start with the most important detail. If your 1991 Lincoln penny has no letter underneath the date, that does not automatically mean something is wrong. In fact, that is exactly what you would expect from a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The 1991 Philadelphia Lincoln cent had a massive mintage of more than 5.1 billion coins. So if you find a regular 1991 penny with no mint mark in circulated condition, don't assume you've discovered a fortune. Most of these coins are worth around face value, depending on condition and the market. But here's where the story gets interesting. A coin can be common overall and still become scarce in extremely high condition. And that is exactly what happened with the 1991 Philadelphia cent. According to PCGS Coinfax, the 1991 Lincoln cent was struck in copper-plated zinc, measures 19 millimeters across, and weighs about 2.50 grams. PCGS estimates that enormous numbers survive, which explains why the average worn example isn't particularly valuable. So why would collectors care about this penny? Condition. Condition is the secret. Imagine two identical 1991 pennies sitting next to each other. One has been carried around in pockets for decades. It has scratches, dark spots, worn surfaces, and maybe even damage around the rim. The other looks like it was pulled from a brand new roll yesterday. Same year. Same design. Same metal. But the second coin can be dramatically more interesting to collectors. That's because high-grade modern coins can be surprisingly difficult to find without marks. Think about what happened to billions of these pennies after they left the mint. They were dumped into bags, shipped across the country, mixed with other coins, dropped onto counters, pushed through vending machines, tossed into pockets, and eventually stored in jars. Every one of those events creates an opportunity for damage. A tiny scratch can matter. A small contact mark can matter. A dull surface can matter. And on a coin like this, the difference between a nice example and an exceptional example can be enormous. PCGS specifically notes that the 1991 P Lincoln cent is fairly common up to about MS67, but examples grading MS68 or higher are considered scarce and desirable. Now stop for a second and look at your own 1991 penny. Is Lincoln's portrait sharply defined? Do the letters look crisp? Are the lines in Lincoln's hair still extremely sharp? Does the coin have strong original red color? And most importantly, are there obvious scratches or contact marks across Lincoln's cheek and the open fields around the portrait? Because this is where many people make their first mistake. They see a shiny penny and assume it's automatically valuable. It isn't. Shiny does not always mean high grade. A coin can be shiny because it was cleaned or polished, and that can actually hurt its collector appeal. What you're looking for is original mint state appearance. On a true red, or RD, example, the coin retains its original reddish gold copper color rather than becoming heavily brown or dull. And the closer you get to the highest grades, the more important every tiny imperfection becomes. Now here's another detail that makes the 1991 cent fascinating. The coin is not made of solid copper like many older Lincoln cents. The 1991 cent uses a copper-plated zinc composition. That means the coin has a zinc core with a thin copper layer on the outside. And because that copper layer is thin, damage can sometimes expose the underlying zinc. So if you see a strange silvery-looking spot, don't immediately assume you've found a rare silver penny. Could simply be damage to the copper plating. This is one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. They see something unusual and immediately think, error coin. But unusual does not always mean valuable. A genuine mint error has to be identified carefully. And here's where things get much more exciting. There are documented dramatic 1991 Lincoln cent errors that are worth far more than a normal example. For instance, Coin World records a 1991 Lincoln cent struck on a dime, graded MS66 by PCGS, that sold for $1,020 at auction. It also records a 1991 cent that was double struck and dramatically off-center, which sold for $45. Now, those are not ordinary 1991 pennies. They are extraordinary minting errors. And that's an important distinction. You shouldn't look at a normal 1991 penny and assume it's worth $1,000 just because another 1991 error coin sold for that amount. The error is the reason for the premium. The same year. The same basic design. but a completely different manufacturing mistake. And that brings us to another important warning. Be very careful with coins that appear doubled. You might see the date, lettering, or other design elements and think you've discovered a double die. But not every type of doubling is a valuable double die variety. Machine doubling, damage, scratches, and other forms of distortion can create appearances that look dramatic but have little added value. So before you start celebrating, make sure you know exactly what you're looking at. Now let's get back to the regular 1991 Philadelphia cent. Because there's still one major question. How much can a normal-looking example actually be worth? For most circulated examples, not much. We're talking about a coin that was produced in enormous numbers. CoinWorld's valuation data shows many circulated 1991 cents at only a few cents above face value, depending on grade, while higher grade examples can command considerably more. But then we reach the upper mint state grades. And that's where the numbers begin to change. PCGS lists an auction record of $1,116 for a 1991 1C graded MS68 plus RD, sold by Heritage Auctions on April 26, 2017. Read that again. More than $1,000 for a 1991 penny. Not because the date itself is extremely rare. Not because every 1991 penny is valuable. And not because there were only a few thousand made. There were billions. The value came from the exceptional grade and the scarcity of coins surviving at that level. That's what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Sometimes rarity isn't simply about how many coins were made. It's about how many survived in exceptional condition. PCGS estimates roughly 210 million examples may survive in grades of MS65 or better, while the population becomes dramatically more selective as the grade rises. And once you're talking about MS68 and above, you're entering a completely different collecting world. At that level, tiny imperfections can determine whether a coin makes the grade. One small mark in the wrong place could be the difference between an outstanding coin and an extraordinary one. So what should you do if you find a 1991 penny that looks unusually perfect? First, don't clean it. This is extremely important. Don't use vinegar. Don't use baking soda. Don't use metal polish. Don't scrub it with a cloth. And don't try to make it look newer. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface and destroy the original appearance collectors want to see. Instead, hold the coin by its edges. Use good lighting. Look at both sides. Check Lincoln's cheek. Check the fields. Check the lettering. Check the date. Check the rim. Then examine the color. If the coin is extremely sharp, has strong original red color, and appears nearly flawless, that's when you may have something worth investigating. And if you think you found a genuine mint error, don't rely on a random online listing to determine its value. An asking price isn't the same thing as a confirmed sale. Auction records and professional authentication are much more useful. That's especially important with expensive coins. Now, let's imagine you open an old jar of change. You find a 1991 penny. No mint mark. At first, you almost throw it back. But then you notice something. The coin is incredibly sharp. Lincoln's hair is crisp. The surfaces are clean. The original red color is still strong. There are almost no visible marks. You turn it over. The reverse is just as impressive. Suddenly, that 1-cent coin becomes worth a second look. Maybe it isn't a $1,000 coin. Maybe it isn't even worth enough to justify professional grading. But you've discovered the exact reason collectors inspect ordinary coins so carefully. Because you never know when an ordinary date survived in extraordinary condition. And that's the real secret behind the 1991 Lincoln cent. The date itself isn't the jackpot. The condition is where the story changes. And genuine errors can take the value into an entirely different category. So before you spend your next 1991 penny, check it. Look for the missing mint mark. Look at the color. Look at the surfaces. Look for unusual strikes, major off-center errors, or other obvious minting abnormalities. And remember, a strange-looking coin isn't automatically rare. Verification matters. If you have a 1991 Lincoln penny sitting in your collection right now, I want to know about it. Does yours have no mint mark? Is it bright red? Does it have any unusual doubling or striking problems? And most importantly, what condition is it in? Take a close look before you put it back into circulation. Because the most exciting coins aren't always the oldest coins. Sometimes they're hiding in the years you walk past every single day. And a 1991 penny may look ordinary at first glance, but the right combination of condition, preservation, and a genuine mint error can turn a 1-cent coin into something collectors are willing to chase. So check your change, check your jars, and check those old rolls of pennies. You might not find a $1,000 coin, but you'll never know unless you look. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories and surprising values behind ordinary US coins, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable errors, and pennies you should never overlook. Because the next coin in your pocket could be the one everyone else missed. Stop. Before you spend that 2000D Lincoln penny, take a second look. One tiny detail on the coin could make it worth far more than 1 cent. And some collectors have paid serious money for exceptional 2000 Lincoln cents. But here's the part most people miss. The letter D alone does not make this penny rare. If you have a 2000 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark, you might be holding a common coin, or a coin with a valuable error or unusual condition. And in this video, we're going to uncover exactly what you should look for before you throw it into a jar, cash register, or vending machine. Imagine finding an ordinary-looking penny in your pocket. You glance at it, see 2000, notice the little D, and think, just another penny. You toss it aside. But what if there were something different about it? That is where the mystery begins. The 2000D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, and millions upon millions of Lincoln cents were produced that year. So the date and D mint mark by themselves usually aren't enough to turn this coin into a $1 million treasure. But coin collecting has one rule that can completely change the story. Condition and errors matter. And that means you should never judge a coin by its face value alone. Start by looking at the date. You want to confirm that the coin really says 2000. Then look directly beneath the date for the small d. That letter tells you the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. Now flip the coin over. You should see the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This is where your inspection becomes much more interesting. Look closely at the lettering, the columns of the memorial, the rim, and the overall shape of the coin. You're searching for something that doesn't look normal. And here's a quick warning. Do not clean the penny. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. Someone finds an old-looking penny and thinks, I'll make it shiny. They scrub it, polish it, or use chemicals to remove dark spots. That can destroy collectible value. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. A natural-looking coin with attractive surfaces can be much more desirable than a heavily cleaned coin, even if the cleaned coin looks brighter to your eyes. So if your 2000D penny looks unusual, leave it alone. Now let's talk about the biggest factor that can separate an ordinary 2000D penny from a potentially valuable example. Condition. Think about the difference between a penny that has been sitting in circulation for years and a penny that was carefully preserved shortly after it was made. The circulated coin may have scratches, discoloration, worn details, and contact marks. A high-grade coin can have sharp details, strong luster, and very few imperfections. And that difference can become extremely important to collectors. But there's another twist. Not every shiny 2000D penny is automatically valuable. A coin can look beautiful under normal room lighting and still have small marks that become obvious under magnification. That's why serious collectors inspect coins under good lighting and often use magnification. Take your penny and tilt it slowly. Watch the surface. Does the luster move across the coin? Are Lincoln's hair details sharp? Are the letters crisp? Does the rim look complete and normal? Now check the reverse. Look at the memorial. Are the columns clearly defined? Are the letters sharp? Does anything appear doubled, distorted, missing, or strangely placed? This is where things get exciting, because errors and varieties can sometimes create a completely different collecting story. A genuine mint error happens during the manufacturing process, and depending on the type, severity, and demand, a major error can be much more interesting to collectors than an ordinary example of the same date. But be careful. Damage is not the same thing as a mint error. A coin can be scratched, squeezed, bent, chemically altered, or damaged by machinery after leaving the mint. Those problems may look strange, but they don't automatically make the coin rare. For example, imagine the edge of your penny looks flattened. You might think, this must be a mint error. Maybe. But it could also have been damaged after leaving the mint. That's why authentication matters when the coin appears genuinely unusual. Now let's look at another thing that can make a 2000D cent interesting. Strike quality. A coin can be struck weakly or unevenly, causing certain details to appear less defined. Again, weak details do not automatically mean enormous value. The key question is whether the characteristic is a recognized minting issue and whether collectors actually want it. This is why the phrase 2000D penny worth $1 million needs to be handled carefully. You may see sensational claims online saying a normal 2000D penny is worth $1 million. But a regular circulated 2000D Lincoln cent is not automatically worth anything close to that. The $1 million number should not be treated as the normal value of this coin. Instead, think of the headline as a reason to investigate, not a guarantee of a jackpot. And that distinction could save you from making a huge mistake. Because the real treasure hunt is not simply finding the year 2000 and the letter D. It's finding something exceptional. Now here's where you can play detective. Grab your 2000D penny. Put it under a bright light. Start with Lincoln's portrait. Look at his jaw, cheek, hair, and coat. Then slowly move toward the date. Look at each digit individually. Do any letters or numbers appear doubled? Does anything look strangely raised? Does the spacing appear unusual? Don't immediately assume you found a rare error. Compare it with another normal 2000D cent. That comparison is powerful. If both coins look the same, you're probably looking at normal production. If your coin has a dramatic difference, that's when you should investigate further. Now flip it over. Look at the word United. Then States of America. Then 1 cent. Then E pluribus unum. Examine the memorial and the columns. You're looking for anything that appears genuinely out of place. And here's a little trick collectors use. Don't stare at the coin from one angle. Tilt it. Rotate it. Change the light. Some surface characteristics become much easier to see when the light moves across the coin. Suddenly, a tiny detail that was invisible a moment ago can jump out. But there's still one more area you need to check. The edge. Hold the penny sideways and inspect the rim. Look for unusual thickness, distortion, or an obvious striking problem. Major off-center strikes, dramatic clips, wrong planchets, and other significant mint errors can attract attention from collectors. But once again, severity matters. A tiny irregularity is not automatically a fortune. A dramatic, genuine error can be a completely different story. And this is why you should never throw away an unusual coin before identifying it. Now let's talk about the condition that can make an ordinary-looking 2000D cent more interesting. Mint state. A mint state coin has not circulated in the normal sense. It can retain much of its original mint appearance and surface quality. The highest grades are incredibly difficult because coins can pick up tiny marks simply by touching other coins during production, transportation, packaging, or storage. That's why a coin that looks perfect to your eyes may not receive a perfect professional grade. One tiny mark can matter. One small spot can matter. Even the quality of the strike can matter. And that brings us to the value reveal. So how much could your 2000D Lincoln penny actually be worth? If it's a normal circulated example, we're generally talking about a coin worth around its face value, with potentially modest premiums depending on condition and the specific market. Even an ordinary uncirculated example isn't automatically worth thousands. The serious money enters the conversation when you have an exceptionally preserved coin, a recognized variety, or, most importantly, a dramatic, authentic mint error. That's where values can rise dramatically. And if a coin is genuinely rare, professionally authenticated, and highly desirable, competitive bidding can push prices much higher than an ordinary example. But here's the number you should remember. $1 million is not the normal value of a 2000D Lincoln cent. If someone tells you every 2000D penny is worth $1 million, don't believe it. The real question is, what makes this particular coin different? That is the question collectors ask. And sometimes that difference is tiny. Maybe it's an unusual strike. Maybe it's a major error. Maybe it's an exceptional grade. Maybe it's a variety that requires close examination. Or maybe it's simply a normal penny that got a lot of attention online. That's why identification comes before valuation. If you think you found something unusual, don't clean it, don't alter it, and don't sell it based on a random internet claim. Take clear photos. Compare it with verified examples. And if the coin appears to have a significant error or exceptional condition, consider having it examined or professionally graded. Now I want you to do something. Check your change. Check your old coin jar. Check the pennies sitting in a drawer. And especially check any 2000D Lincoln cents you already have. Look for the date. Look for the D. Then inspect the entire coin, not just one tiny detail. Because the most exciting part of coin collecting isn't knowing that a rare coin exists. It's realizing that the coin you almost ignored might deserve a second look. And here's the question. Have you ever found a 2000D Lincoln penny that looked different from every other penny you've seen? Maybe the date looked doubled. Maybe the coin was dramatically off-center. Maybe the edge looked strange. Or maybe you discovered an unusually beautiful, nearly flawless example. Tell me what you found in the comments. You might even help another collector recognize something they would have missed. And remember, don't get fooled by the $1 million headline. The 2000D Lincoln cent isn't automatically a $1 million coin. But that doesn't mean every 2000D penny is worthless. The fun is in finding the exception. So before you spend that little copper-colored coin, take a closer look. Because sometimes the difference between 1 cent and serious collector value isn't the date. It's the tiny detail hiding right in front of you. And if you enjoy hunting for those hidden details, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable Lincoln pennies, unusual mint errors, and old coins that collectors are searching for. Your next great find could already be sitting in your pocket. What if I told you that a 2001 Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket could look completely ordinary, have no mint mark at all, and still make you stop before spending it? Some online claims say a 2001 Lincoln penny with no mint mark could be worth $1 million. But before you start searching every penny jar in your house, there's a mystery you need to understand. Because the truth about the 2001 penny is much more interesting than simply saying, it's worth a fortune. Today, we're going to look at the 2001 Lincoln cent, why some people think the missing mint mark is a major error, what the absence of a mint mark actually means, which unusual varieties and errors can make a 2001 penny more desirable, and most importantly, what you should check before you decide whether your coin is ordinary or something special. And stay with me, because the biggest mistake you can make is looking only at the date. Picture this. You're going through an old coin jar. Maybe it came from a relative. Maybe you've been saving pocket change for years. You pick up a small copper-colored coin and see the date, 2001. Then you flip it over and look near the date. There's no D. There's no S. There's nothing. Just 2001. At first, that might seem like a mistake. Maybe the mint forgot to put the letter on the coin. Maybe you've discovered a rare mint error. And this is exactly where the confusion begins. A lot of people see a 2001 Lincoln penny without a mint mark and immediately assume something went wrong. But there's a very important fact you need to know. A missing mint mark on a 2001 Lincoln cent does not automatically mean the coin is rare. In fact, for this particular coin, a penny without a mint mark is generally exactly what you would expect from a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. That means the absence of a mint mark by itself is not the $1 million secret. And that changes everything. Think about it. If you found a 2001 penny with no mint mark, you may not have found a rare error. You may simply have found a normal Philadelphia issue. But don't stop watching yet. Because normal does not mean worthless. And more importantly, some 2001 cents can have characteristics that collectors care about. The real question is not, does it have a mint mark? The real question is, what else is going on with this coin? Let's start with the basics. The 2001 Lincoln cent features Abraham Lincoln on the front, just like other Lincoln cents produced for decades. On the reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial design, which was used on cents from 1959 through 2008. The coin has a face value of 1 cent. But collectors don't always care about face value. They care about rarity, condition, demand, varieties, and genuine mint errors. And that's where a normal-looking penny can sometimes become much more interesting. Now look closely at the date, 2001. Next, check the area below the date. If there's no mint mark, that generally points toward Philadelphia. If you see a D, that indicates Denver. And if you see an S, you're dealing with a San Francisco issue, although San Francisco cents from this era were generally produced for collectors rather than ordinary circulation. So if your 2001 penny has no mint mark, don't panic. And don't assume someone forgot something. But now comes the fun part. Take the coin and tilt it under a bright light. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Look at the letters. Look around the rim. Look at the date. Then flip it over. Look carefully at the Lincoln Memorial. You're searching for something that was not supposed to happen during production. Because a genuine mint error is very different from a coin simply having no mint mark. For example, a coin can have an unusual strike, a double design, an off-center strike, a broad strike, a clipped planchet, or another legitimate production error. But there's another trap you need to avoid. Damage is not the same thing as an error. A coin that was squeezed, scratched, bent, scraped, polished, heated, chemically altered, or damaged after leaving the mint can look strange. And strange does not automatically mean valuable. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. They find something unusual and immediately assume they found a rare coin. Collectors do the opposite. They ask questions. Was the unusual feature created at the mint? Does it match a known variety or error? Is the feature visible on the original design? Does the metal flow make sense? Could normal wear explain it? And most importantly, is there evidence that the coin really came from the mint that way? That's the difference between an interesting penny and a potentially valuable one. Now let's talk about condition. This is where your 2001 penny can become much more interesting. Imagine two identical pennies. Both are dated 2001. Both have no mint mark. Both are Philadelphia cents. One has been circulating for years. It has scratches, dirt, discoloration, worn surfaces, and contact marks. The other looks almost untouched. The design is sharp. The surfaces are clean. The original luster is still visible. The difference can be enormous from a collector's perspective. Why? Because condition matters. Coins that survive in exceptionally high grades can attract collectors, especially when they have strong eye appeal and are certified by a respected grading service. And this is why you should never judge a coin only by its age. A 2001 penny is not ancient. It's actually relatively modern. But age is only one part of the equation. Rarity and condition can matter much more. Now here's a question. Why do people keep hearing stories about ordinary-looking pennies being worth thousands or even millions of dollars? Because there really are famous U.S. coins that have sold for extraordinary amounts. There are genuine mint errors, famous varieties, and extremely rare coins that have brought huge prices. But those coins are exceptions. They are not proof that every penny with a certain date is worth a fortune. And this is especially important with the 2001 no mint mark penny. A regular example should not be treated as a $1 million coin simply because it lacks a mint mark. So where does the $1 million claim come from? Usually, it comes from mixing up a genuine rare coin story with a common coin. A headline might say, 2001 penny worth $1 million. And suddenly thousands of people start searching their change. But the headline leaves out the most important part. What exact variety? What exact error? What grade? What auction? What verified sale? Without those details, a huge price claim means very little. Here's another pattern you need to remember. A coin can be listed online for $1 million. That does not mean someone paid $1 million for it. Anyone can create an ambitious asking price. Collectors care about documented transactions and credible evidence. So if you see someone claiming that a normal 2001 no mint mark penny is automatically worth $1 million, slow down. Check the facts. Now, let's imagine you actually find something unusual on your 2001 penny. Maybe the coin looks dramatically off-center. Maybe part of the design appears doubled. Maybe the edge looks unusual. Maybe the planchet shape is clearly abnormal. That's when you should stop cleaning the coin. Seriously. Do not polish it. Do not scrape it. Do not use chemicals. Do not try to make it look newer. Cleaning can permanently damage the surfaces and reduce collector appeal. Instead, protect the coin. Handle it carefully by the edges. Take clear photographs under good lighting. And if the feature appears significant, consider getting an expert opinion or professional authentication. That one step can save you from making a very expensive mistake. Now let's come back to the big question. How much is a normal 2001 Lincoln penny with no mint mark worth? In most cases, not $1 million. A circulated example is generally worth around its face value, with the possibility of a small premium depending on condition and collector demand. Uncirculated examples can be worth more, particularly in high grades. And exceptional certified coins or legitimate errors can be a different story altogether. But there is no automatic $1 million value attached to the words 2001 and no mint mark. That's the key. So if you have one in your collection, don't throw it away. But don't quit your job either. Instead, inspect it. And now we're getting to the part that could actually make your search worthwhile. Look at every 2001 penny you have. Compare them. Which one has the strongest surfaces? Which one has the sharpest details? Does one show an unusual strike? Does one have a strange shape? Does one appear dramatically different from the others? That comparison can reveal things you might miss by looking at a single coin. And if you're searching through old jars, coin rolls, or inherited collections, don't stop with 2001. The same basic principle applies to almost every US coin. The date is only the beginning. The mint mark is only one clue. Condition is another. Varieties matter. Errors matter. And authentication matters. That's how serious collectors approach hidden value coins. So, could your 2001 no mint mark Lincoln penny be worth $1 million? A normal example? No. But could an unusual, genuinely authenticated error or exceptionally rare collectible example be worth substantially more than 1 cent? That's the question worth investigating. And that's why you should never judge a coin in 2 seconds. A tiny detail can change the entire story. So go grab your coin jar. Check your 2001 pennies. Look at the date. Check the mint mark. Inspect the surfaces. Examine the strike. And if you find something that looks truly unusual, don't clean it and don't assume the first price you see online is real. Research it. Compare it. And, when necessary, get it authenticated. Now I want to know what you found. Do you have a 2001 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Does yours look completely normal? Or did you notice something unusual? Tell me in the comments what you see, because your coin might be ordinary, or you might have discovered a feature that deserves a much closer look. And remember, the most valuable coin in your collection might not be the oldest one. Sometimes, the coin everyone ignores is the one that deserves a second look. If you enjoy hunting for rare coins, valuable pennies, hidden mint errors, and unusual coins hiding in everyday change, subscribe for more discoveries. Because the next penny you pick up could have a story you never expected. Stop before you spend that 2002 Lincoln penny. That tiny 1-cent coin in your pocket could look completely ordinary, but one important detail can turn an everyday 2002 penny into a serious collector coin. And here's the surprising part. The regular 2002 Philadelphia Lincoln cent was made in enormous numbers. More than 3.2 billion were struck. So why are collectors still interested in this coin? Because when billions of coins are produced, finding one that survives in truly exceptional condition becomes a completely different story. Today, we're taking a close look at the 2002 Lincoln penny, including the Philadelphia version with no mint mark, what makes it interesting, which mistakes collectors make when checking one, and most importantly, how high the value can go when the coin reaches an extraordinary grade. So before you throw that penny into a jar, a cash register, or a coin counting machine, take a closer look. The first thing you need to know is what you're looking at. The 2002 Lincoln cent from Philadelphia has no mint mark underneath the date. That's normal. It doesn't mean the coin is missing something. It means the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The coin is the familiar Lincoln cent design that millions of Americans have handled. Abraham Lincoln appears on the obverse, while the reverse features the Lincoln Memorial design that was used for decades. The 2002 Philadelphia cent is made from copper-plated zinc. It weighs about 2.50 grams and measures 19 millimeters across. It also has a plain edge. Sounds ordinary, right? That's exactly what makes this coin interesting. When a coin has a huge mintage, most examples are not rare. In fact, PCGS describes the 2002 Lincoln cent as easily obtainable, with coins grading MS-67 or lower generally fairly easy to find. But there's a major difference between finding a 2002 penny and finding an exceptional 2002 penny. And that's where the mystery begins. Imagine opening a handful of pennies from a cash register. You see a 2002 date. You flip it over. Nothing jumps out. You almost toss it aside. But what if the coin has almost no contact marks? What if the original red color is still bright? What if the surfaces are unusually clean? And what if the coin is much higher quality than the typical 2002 penny? Suddenly, you're not just looking at a 1-cent coin anymore. You're looking at condition. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make when searching for valuable modern pennies. They assume the date alone creates the value. Usually, it doesn't. With a common modern coin like the 2002 Philadelphia cent, condition can make an enormous difference. Think about it this way. Billions of examples were produced. Most entered circulation. They bounced around in pockets, cash drawers, vending machines, coin jars, and bank bags. They rubbed against other coins. They picked up scratches. They developed spots, discoloration, dents, and contact marks. Every little mark can matter when you're trying to reach the highest grades. That's why a coin that looks nearly perfect to your eyes can still fall short of the level collectors are looking for. Now here's where you should slow down. Take your 2002 penny and look at Lincoln's cheek. Then examine the fields around his portrait. Check the area near the date. Look at the lettering. Then flip the coin over and inspect the Lincoln Memorial. You're looking for damage, not just beauty. A tiny scratch that you barely notice could be important. A fingerprint, spot, stain, or discoloration can also hurt the appearance. And when you're dealing with modern coins, preservation is everything. But there's another detail you need to understand. The letters RD that you may see in a professional coin listing stand for red. That designation describes the coin's color and preservation of its original copper appearance. A red modern Lincoln cent can be much more desirable than one that has turned brown or developed mixed coloration. So don't just ask, is my 2002 penny shiny? Ask, how well has this coin preserved its original appearance? That's a much better question. And there's something else that makes this particular coin fascinating. PCGS lists an auction record of $595 for a 2002 Lincoln cent graded MS-69 RD, with the sale recorded on October 15, 2021. Think about that. A coin with a face value of 1 cent reached a recorded auction price of hundreds of dollars because of its exceptional condition. But don't make the mistake of hearing $595 and assuming every 2002 penny is worth hundreds. It isn't. Most 2002 Philadelphia cents are common. A normal circulated example may be worth only its face value. Even many uncirculated examples aren't automatically valuable. The serious money is connected to extreme condition and collector demand. And this is where the grading scale becomes important. When professional graders examine a coin, they consider factors such as surface quality, luster, strike, contact marks, color, and overall preservation. A coin that looks great under normal room lighting may reveal flaws under magnification. That's why you should never clean your coin before having it evaluated. This is another huge mistake. Someone finds an old-looking penny, grabs a cloth, polish, or cleaning solution, and tries to make it shine. That can actually reduce its collector value. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. A cleaned coin may look brighter, but it can lose the natural appearance that serious collectors want. So if you think your 2002 penny might be special, leave it alone. Don't scrub it. Don't polish it. Don't scratch it. Just protect it and inspect it carefully. Now let's talk about errors. This is where the internet can get confusing. You may see claims that almost any strange-looking penny is a rare error worth thousands. That's not how professional coin collecting works. A genuine mint error can be valuable, but it needs to be identified correctly. A damaged coin isn't automatically an error. A scratch isn't automatically a die variety. A crooked appearance isn't automatically a major mint mistake. And discoloration isn't automatically a rare strike. Coins can be damaged after leaving the mint in countless ways. That's why authentication and professional evaluation can matter when something truly unusual appears. But there's another reason to keep checking your 2002 cents. The most exciting possibilities may not be obvious at first glance. Look closely around the date. Examine the mint mark area, or in this case, remember that a Philadelphia 2002 cent normally has no mint mark. Inspect the lettering and numbers for unusual doubling. Check the rim. Look for abnormal metal flow, missing details, unusual shapes, or other characteristics that appear to have happened during the minting process rather than after the coin entered circulation. And don't forget the reverse. The Lincoln Memorial has many details where unusual strike characteristics or damage can sometimes become visible. But here's the key. Unusual does not automatically mean valuable. You need to determine what caused the feature. Was it created at the mint? Or did something happen to the coin later? That simple question can separate a genuine collectible from an ordinary damaged penny. Now let's come back to the biggest surprise. The 2002 Philadelphia Lincoln cent had a mintage of approximately 3,260,800,000 coins. That's more than 3 billion. So clearly, this is not a rare coin in the traditional sense. PCGS gives the regular strike 2002 cent a very low overall rarity rating. Its survival estimates are enormous, which makes sense considering the massive production. But here's the twist. PCGS notes that MS68 examples are scarce, while coins grading higher than MS69 are rare and can command a huge premium compared with MS69 coins. That's the part many casual collectors miss. The coin itself can be common while the finest surviving examples can be difficult to find. It's the difference between rarity of date and rarity of condition. Imagine two identical 2002 pennies sitting side by side. One has scratches, contact marks, dull color, and signs of circulation. The other has brilliant original red color, excellent surfaces, strong detail, and almost no visible imperfections. They both say 2002. They both have a face value of 1 cent. But to a serious collector, they are not necessarily equal. And that's why you should never judge a modern penny only by its age. A 2002 penny isn't ancient. It isn't a wheat cent. It isn't automatically rare. But a superb example can still attract attention. Now, before you check your own coin, here's a quick challenge. Find a 2002 Lincoln cent. Place it under good lighting. Don't clean it. Don't rub it. Look at Lincoln's face, the date, the fields, and the edges of the design. Then flip it over. Check the Lincoln Memorial and the open fields around it. You're not looking for a coin that simply looks shiny. You're looking for a coin that looks unusually well preserved. If you have a large collection of pennies, don't inspect every coin randomly. Start with the ones that have the strongest color and the fewest visible marks. That's how you save time. And remember, the most valuable coin in your collection might not be the oldest one. It might be the one that spent years protected from circulation while millions of its brothers were damaged and worn. So what should you expect from your 2002 penny? If it's a normal circulated Philadelphia example, don't expect a fortune. If it's an ordinary uncirculated coin with noticeable marks, the value may still be modest. But if you discover an exceptionally preserved coin, especially one that could compete at the very highest grades, that's when the story changes. And if you find a genuine mint error or unusual variety, that's another reason to have the coin professionally examined rather than guessing from internet photos. Now comes the value reveal. The 2002 Lincoln cent has a face value of just 1 cent. But a professionally graded MS69 RD example has a recorded auction result of $595. That's nearly 60,000 times its face value. And that number tells you something important. The goal isn't to convince yourself that every 2002 penny is a hidden fortune. The goal is to learn how to recognize the tiny percentage of coins that are dramatically better than average. Because when billions of coins exist, condition becomes the battlefield. So check your change. Check your old coin jars. Check those rolls of pennies you've been ignoring. And especially check any 2002 Philadelphia Lincoln cents that look unusually fresh, bright, and untouched. You could discover nothing more than a common penny. Or you could discover a coin that deserves a much closer look. And that's the fun of coin collecting. You never know what you're holding until you actually check. So tell me in the comments, do you have a 2002 Lincoln penny? And what condition is it in? Have you ever found one that looked almost perfect? And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden details behind ordinary American coins, make sure you subscribe, because the next penny sitting in your pocket could have a story you never expected. Stop before you spend that 2005 Lincoln penny. That tiny 1-cent coin may look completely ordinary, but there's one detail collectors always check, and if yours has the right error, it could be worth far more than 1 cent. But here's the twist. A 2005 penny with no mint mark is not automatically worth $1 million. So why are people talking about huge values? And what should you actually look for? Today, we're going to break down the 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, explain exactly what that missing mint mark means, reveal the kinds of errors that can make a 2005 penny valuable, and show you the mistakes that could cause you to overlook a collectible coin sitting right in front of you. And stay with me, because near the end, I'll explain the single biggest thing you should check before deciding whether your 2005 penny is just pocket change or something worth putting aside. Imagine this. You're cleaning out an old jar of coins. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters are scattered across the table. Most are common. You start sorting them by year almost without thinking. Then you notice a 2005 Lincoln penny. You turn it over. You look at the date. 2005. Then you look underneath the date. Nothing. No D. No S. No mint mark at all. At that moment you might think, wait a second, is this rare? That question is exactly where the mystery begins. The first thing you need to know is that the United States Mint produced 2005 Lincoln cents at multiple facilities. Coins made at the Philadelphia Mint generally carried no mint mark, while coins struck at Denver carried a D, and proof coins from San Francisco carried an S. So if your 2005 Lincoln cent has no mint mark, that does not automatically mean it is an error. In fact, a normal 2005 Philadelphia Lincoln cent without a mint mark is usually a common coin. That may sound disappointing, but don't stop watching. Because the absence of a mint mark is only one piece of the puzzle. Collectors don't simply look at the date and mint mark. They examine the entire coin. They look at the lettering. They inspect Lincoln's portrait. They check the edges. They examine the reverse. They search for doubling, die damage, unusual strikes, off-center errors, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and other genuine minting mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are where the real excitement begins. Think about it this way. The mint is designed to produce millions of coins that look almost identical. When something goes wrong during the manufacturing process, a small number of coins can escape before the problem is corrected. That's what makes genuine mint errors interesting. But there's another important warning. Not every strange-looking penny is a valuable error. This is where many new collectors make a costly mistake. They see a blurry letter. They notice a scratch. They see what looks like doubling. Or they find a small mark near Lincoln's portrait. Then they search online and see headlines claiming that a similar coin is worth thousands or even millions. Suddenly, that 1-cent coin starts looking like a jackpot. But a damaged coin and a genuine mint error are two completely different things. A scratch that happened after the coin left the mint is damage. A strange mark caused by circulation is usually damage. Discoloration from chemicals, cleaning, corrosion, or environmental exposure does not automatically make a coin rare. And cleaning a potentially collectible penny can actually reduce its appeal. So if you find an unusual 2005 penny, don't polish it. Don't scrape it. Don't try to make it shiny. And definitely don't alter it to make an error look more dramatic. Leave the coin exactly as you found it. Now let's talk about the detail that gets people especially excited. Doubling. A genuine double die can be valuable because the doubling occurs during the die-making process, before the coin is struck. But there is a huge difference between true double die characteristics and something called machine doubling. Machine doubling can make parts of the design appear flattened, shifted, or slightly doubled. To an inexperienced collector, it can look extremely convincing. But it usually does not carry the same collectible premium as a recognized double die. That's why magnification can help. Take your 2005 penny and examine the date. Look closely at the letters. Then inspect the words on the coin. Look for separation that appears consistent and raised in a way that suggests genuine doubling rather than a flat shelf-like effect. And remember, just because something looks doubled in a photograph does not prove that it is a valuable double die. Authentication matters. Now here's another pattern interrupt. What if the coin is dramatically off-center? That can be much more interesting. During the striking process, a coin blank, known as a planchet, is supposed to be positioned correctly between the dies. If something goes wrong, the design can be struck noticeably away from the center. You might see part of the design missing from one side while a large blank area appears on the other. The more dramatic and clearly genuine the error, the more interesting the coin can become. But there's a catch. A tiny amount of off-centering may not create a huge premium. The severity, overall condition, eye appeal, and authenticity all matter. Another fascinating error is a clipped planchet. Instead of being perfectly round, part of the coin may appear missing, sometimes producing a curved or straight-looking section along the edge. Again, not every damaged edge is a mint error. That distinction is critical. A coin damaged by a coin-counting machine, vice, pliers, or another object can look strange. Collectors want evidence that the unusual shape happened during the minting process. And then there are broad strikes. A broad-struck coin can appear wider than normal because the collar that normally helps contain the metal during striking was not functioning correctly. These kinds of errors can create dramatic-looking coins that immediately stand out. So when you're checking a 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't stop at the words, "no mint mark." That's only the beginning. Now let's talk about condition. Suppose you find two 2005 pennies that appear identical. One has been circulating for years. Its surfaces are scratched. The details are worn. The color is dull. The other looks almost untouched. The design is sharp. The original surfaces are attractive. There are very few marks. Which one would collectors rather examine? Usually the better preserved coin. Condition can make a major difference in the collectible market. Coins are commonly graded on a scale that ranges from heavily circulated examples to extremely high-grade uncirculated pieces. At the very top, tiny differences can matter. A coin that looks incredible under normal lighting may reveal marks under magnification. That's why professional grading can become important when a coin appears genuinely unusual or potentially valuable. But before you spend money getting a coin graded, do your research. You don't want to spend more on authentication and grading than the coin is realistically worth. Now we come to the biggest question. How much is a 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark worth? Here's where we need to separate internet hype from reality. A normal 2005 Philadelphia Lincoln cent with no mint mark is generally not a $1 million coin. It was intentionally produced without a mint mark. So if you have a normal circulated 2005 penny with no mint mark and no unusual characteristics, you should not expect a life-changing payout. That's the honest answer. But does that mean every 2005 no mint mark penny is worthless? Absolutely not. A genuine mint error, an unusual variety, an exceptional condition example, or another authenticated collectible characteristic can potentially make a coin more desirable. The value depends on exactly what the coin is, how rare the feature is, its condition, and what comparable examples have actually sold for. And this is where you need to be careful with those $1 million penny claims. A headline saying a coin is worth $1 million does not mean every coin of that date is worth $1 million. Sometimes a sensational headline is based on an extraordinary example, an auction estimate, a hypothetical value, or simply internet exaggeration. There is a massive difference between a coin being listed for an enormous asking price and a coin actually selling for that amount. Collectors care about real market evidence. So if someone tells you your ordinary 2005 no mint mark penny is automatically worth $1 million, be skeptical. Ask one simple question. What specific error or variety makes it valuable? If they can't answer that, don't believe the claim. Now, grab your 2005 penny if you have one. Start with the date. Make sure it actually says 2005. Then check the area underneath the date. If there is no mint mark, remember that this is normal for a Philadelphia issue. Next, examine the entire coin. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Check the lettering. Inspect the reverse. Look for unusual doubling. Look at the edge. Check for major off-center striking. Look for a possible clipped planchet. And pay close attention to anything that appears dramatically different from a normal 2005 cent. But don't rush. The most valuable thing you can have as a collector is patience. Take clear photographs. Compare your coin with known examples. Use reputable coin references. And if you think you have a serious mint error, consider getting an expert opinion before making any big decision. Because here's the truth about coin collecting. The treasure isn't always the coin you expect. Sometimes the most exciting discovery is hidden inside a roll of ordinary pennies. A coin that everyone else ignores can suddenly become interesting when you discover a genuine minting mistake. And that is why you should never judge a coin only by its face value. Penny is worth 1 cent as money. But a collectible coin can be worth more because of rarity, condition, demand, history, or an unusual minting characteristic. So, is your 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark automatically worth $1 million? No. But should you inspect it before tossing it into a jar or spending it? Definitely. Especially if something about the coin looks unusual. And now I want to know what you found. Do you have a 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Does yours show unusual doubling, an off-center strike, a strange edge, or another feature that looks different from a normal coin? Take a close look before you spend it, because that ordinary-looking penny could be hiding a story that most people would never notice. And remember, the goal isn't to believe every million-dollar penny headline. The goal is to learn how to recognize the real clues. So check your change. Check your old coin jars. Check those forgotten rolls of pennies. You might not find $1 million coin, and most people won't, but you could discover an unusual piece that deserves a much closer look. If you enjoy finding hidden value in everyday coins, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, unusual errors, and Lincoln penny mysteries. And the next time someone tells you a penny is worthless, take a second look. Because sometimes the smallest coins can hide the biggest surprises. What if the 2006 Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket right now looks completely ordinary, but one tiny detail could make it worth far more than 1 cent? Before you spend another penny, stop and look closely at the date and mint mark. Because with Lincoln cents, the smallest difference can sometimes separate a common coin from a serious collector's piece. And there's one question collectors hear all the time. Can a 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark really be worth $1 million? The answer may surprise you. Today, we're taking a close look at the 2006 Lincoln cent, especially examples with no mint mark. We'll uncover what that missing letter actually means, what mistakes people make when identifying these coins, which errors can make a 2006 penny more interesting, and what you should check before deciding that your coin is worthless. First, let's clear up the biggest mystery. You pick up a 2006 Lincoln penny and look underneath the date. There's no little letter, no D, no S, nothing. At first, that can look unusual. But here's the twist. A 2006 Lincoln cent without a mint mark is not automatically a rare error. In fact, coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint normally carried no mint mark. That means millions of ordinary 2006 pennies were produced without a mint letter. So if your 2006 penny has no mint mark, don't throw it away, but don't assume you found $1 million coin either. And that's where things get interesting. Because collectors don't just look at the year. They look at how the coin was made. Imagine finding a 2006 penny in an old jar of change. It has some scratches. The copper-colored surface looks normal, and there's no mint mark. You might put it back without thinking twice. But now imagine that same coin has a dramatic minting error. Suddenly, you're looking at a completely different situation. This is the part many people miss. A coin can be common by date but valuable because of an unusual error. The date tells you when the coin was made. The mint mark can tell you where it was made. But the condition and production errors can tell a completely different story. So let's start with the most important thing to understand about the 2006 Lincoln cent. The coin features Abraham Lincoln on the front, just like other Lincoln cents. The reverse design used in 2006 was the memorial reverse, showing the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. The coin was part of a design that had been used on Lincoln cents for decades. And because the Lincoln cent was one of the most heavily used coins in American commerce, enormous numbers were produced. That means an ordinary 2006 penny with no mint mark usually isn't rare simply because it lacks a mint letter. But wait. There's a reason you should still inspect yours. Look at the date. Is the 2 sharp? Does the 0 look normal? Are the 0 and 6 clearly separated? Now move your eyes toward the area below the date. If there is no mint mark, that can be completely normal for a Philadelphia struck coin. Next, look at the lettering. Check Liberty. Check I in God We Trust. Look for unusual doubling, distorted letters, or strange shapes that appear to be part of the strike, rather than damage that happened after the coin left the mint. And this distinction is extremely important. A lot of pennies online are described as rare errors when they actually have damage. For example, if the edge is flattened because someone dropped the coin, that usually isn't a valuable mint error. If the surface has scratches from years of circulation, those scratches don't normally make the coin rare. If someone has intentionally altered the coin, that's another problem. Collectors want evidence that the unusual feature happened during the minting process. That's why you should never judge a coin based on one strange-looking mark. Here's another quick test. Turn the penny over. Look carefully at the Lincoln Memorial. Check the columns. Check the lettering. Check the rim. You're looking for something that appears unusually doubled, missing, misaligned, or dramatically distorted. And remember, ordinary wear can make letters look weak. Damage can create shapes that resemble doubling. Lighting can make normal features look strange. That's why serious collectors compare the coin against known examples instead of relying on a quick glance. Now let's talk about condition. This is where the value conversation gets much more interesting. A heavily circulated 2006 penny with scratches, stains, and worn details will generally be worth around face value unless it has a significant recognized error. But a coin that was preserved in exceptional condition can attract collectors. Imagine two identical 2006 pennies. One spent years moving through vending machines, parking lots, cash registers, and pockets. The other was barely handled and kept protected from the beginning. Same year. Same basic design. Completely different condition. That difference can matter. Collectors often pay premiums for coins that survive with exceptionally sharp details and attractive surfaces. Coins graded by professional services can sometimes bring significantly more than ordinary examples. But there's another trap. People sometimes see an online listing where someone has placed a huge price on a 2006 penny and assume that's what the coin is worth. It isn't. An asking price is not the same as a completed sale. Someone can list an ordinary penny for $100,000, $1 million, or even $10 million. That doesn't mean anyone has actually paid that amount. The real question is, what did comparable coins actually sell for? That is one of the most important lessons in coin collecting. Never confuse a crazy listing price with real market value. So what about the famous $1 million claim? Could a normal 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark realistically be worth $1 million? There is no good reason to assume that it is. A normal Philadelphia 2006 Lincoln cent with no mint mark is not automatically a $1 million rarity. The absence of a mint mark is expected on Philadelphia cents from this period. For a coin to approach an extraordinary value, you would need extraordinary evidence. A major, authenticated mint error. An incredibly rare variety. A unique or historically important piece. Or some other exceptional characteristic recognized by the numismatic market. And even then, a $1 million valuation would require serious documentation and a real market for that specific coin. So if somebody tells you that every 2006 penny without a mint mark is worth $1 million, be careful. That claim is misleading. But, and this is important, you should still check your coins. Because the exciting part of coin collecting is that you don't need every coin to be valuable. You only need one unusual coin to make the search interesting. Think about what happens every day. Pennies pass through millions of hands. They fall into couch cushions. They sit in old drawers. They get stored in jars for decades. And some coins with unusual characteristics can remain unnoticed for years. That's why collectors inspect their change. Not because every penny is secretly worth a fortune, but because the next interesting coin could be hiding in plain sight. Now take your 2006 penny and look at the rim. Is the rim complete? Does the coin appear properly centered? Is there unusual metal showing around the edge? Look at both sides. Do the designs appear aligned? Are there strange areas where the metal seems to have flowed in an unusual way? Then inspect the lettering under good lighting. A magnifying glass can help. A phone camera can help even more. Take a close-up picture and compare what you see with trusted coin references or known examples of certified errors. And whatever you do, don't clean the coin. This is another common mistake. Someone finds an old penny, thinks it might be valuable, and starts polishing it until it shines. That can actually hurt the coin's collector value. Original surfaces matter. So leave the coin alone until you know what you have. Now let's build the suspense one more time. Suppose your 2006 penny has no mint mark. What should you do? First, don't panic. Second, don't celebrate yet. Third, inspect the coin for something genuinely unusual. If it's simply a normal Philadelphia struck 2006 Lincoln cent, it's generally a common coin. If it has significant damage, that usually doesn't make it valuable. But if you discover a legitimate minting error or an unusual variety, that's when the investigation gets serious. And if you think you've found something exceptional, don't rely on a random internet comment telling you it's worth $1 million. Have it examined by a reputable numismatist or professional grading service. Authentication is critical, because the difference between looks strange and recognized mint error can be enormous. Now comes the question everyone has been waiting for. How much is your 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark worth? For an ordinary circulated example, the answer is usually simple, around 1 cent. That might not sound exciting, but here's the real value of this coin. Teaches you exactly what to look for. The missing mint mark itself isn't the jackpot. The potential jackpot would come from something unusual that can be proven to have happened during production. So don't spend your 2006 penny just because someone says it's worthless. And don't sell it for a fortune just because someone online says it's worth $1 million. Inspect first. Verify second. Value third. That's how smart collectors approach coins. Now I want you to do something. Go find your old change jar. Check your drawers. Look through those pennies you've been ignoring. And if you have a 2006 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, take a close look at both sides. Does yours have any unusual doubling? Does the edge look strange? Does the design appear dramatically misaligned? Or does it look completely normal? Tell me in the comments what you found. And remember, the most valuable coin in your collection might not be the oldest one. Sometimes, the real story is hidden in a tiny detail that almost everyone else overlooks. So before you spend that ordinary-looking penny, look again. Because in coin collecting, one small detail can turn a boring piece of pocket change into a mystery worth investigating. And that's exactly why you should never stop checking your coins. Subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, hidden varieties, unusual mint errors, and valuable American coins hiding in everyday change. Because your next penny may not be worth $1 million, but it could still be worth much more than you think.